Hello everyone, welcome back to an episode of A Little Atypical. My name is Alayjah, you can call me Lay, and it's been such a long time since I made a podcast episode. So usually I would follow a very specific format, but today I'm just kind of feeling like doing things a little different. So I obviously had a lot of ideas. The last time I was supposed to post but ended up not posting was when I would say the end of July, right before I started my job. However, there was so much going on and so many new things happened for me in August. So I'm going to do a brief catch up and then kind of see where this episode is going. The funny part is, the last episode that I was planning to record, I did do a card pull and I got the new moon in Capricorn, which essentially is a card that's saying your hard work is paying off. And trust me, it really was paying. But also, there was just a lot of things happening in my life. So usually I do the good experience of the week and learning experience of the week. But honestly, this just should be a catch-up before I get into the episode. So besides the new job that I started August 1st, I also started another podcast. Not an individual podcast, but kind of like a group podcast. I kind of work with these people from different parts of the world. One person named is Cindy, and she's from Australia. The other co-host is Nikki. She's from the Philippines. And then we have a person who does the editing for us. So it's a little different than what I'm doing with A Little Atypical. And it's called the Adult and Slay podcast. And honestly, I've been really loving working on that podcast too. Because honestly, when you podcast by yourself, it's a bit harder to hold yourself accountable. But with a group one, it is easier to have that accountability because then if you don't do something, if you don't show up, you're not just letting yourself down, you're letting other people down. If you are somewhat like me, then having a podcast like that is very beneficial. Updates in regards to the new job. Been very hard adjusting to time zones and everything like that because as of July I had like a routine set in place. Once I started working, it's been kind of an inconsistent schedule. It's been inconsistent for a while, and even my latest schedule for the past week has been I would start work at 9 and 1 and then start back up again 6 p.m. and then 10 p.m. which for some people that works, but it was not working for me because my brain was still active at that point. And it was really, really difficult because especially like I'm productive in the mornings, but once it does hit a certain point, I'm also an overthinker. So having to end 10 o'clock and then going to sleep, my brain needs at least 2 hours to really like go to relax mode. And because I haven't been doing that, I haven't been getting good sleep. So we're trying something different this upcoming week, but I'm hoping it would be a lot better. And I'm trying to think of any other update. Oh, yeah, another thing that happened in August is one of my laptops broke. And the thing is, now I have to start using the laptop that I was just solely using for content creation as also a work laptop. It's been so difficult to create content in that sense because with specifically doing this podcast, and what I wanted to start doing was editing my YouTube videos again because this was the laptop I have Final Cut Pro on. Now it's a lot difficult because now I have all these work files and then content files, which is a lot. I'm going to be quite honest. And I was honestly so upset about my computer breaking. And I don't know if or when could be recovered, because originally I was just going to go through with fixing it with Apple, because the issue was it was not turning on. No matter how charged it was, it would make the sound, like the sound as if it's opening, but there would be no logo. You can't see anything on the screen. The screen was black. The touch bar was black. Nothing was coming up. And I was so confused, because literally I was working on that laptop earlier that day. And once I came back from a nap, it just wasn't working. It was really weird. And I'm so upset, because I had important files that honestly I should have backed up. My very last semester, I just wasn't as on top of things as I should have been. So from semesters like 7 and 8, I don't have all my files. And that stresses me out so much. But enough about that. So I think that's everything I had to say about the updates. As you can see, I've had so much crazy changes and everything in my life. So I figured it'd be a good idea to talk about how to reset after so many changes, especially rapid changes, because it is September, and September is a season that I always loved, like growing up, because it was back to school season. So I loved an excuse to get like new stuff and like, you know, get the newness, get the new notebooks, the new backpack, the new clothes. Even though I wore a uniform, I always got at least new sneakers. August was also like, it used to be like when I would go back to school for college. This is the first August I'm having, and I'm not returning back to school because I graduated. And honestly, I always think about how people, like, once they graduate, they usually sometimes do like post-grad, or they decide to switch to another degree. But honestly, I can't think of that right now. But I do kind of miss the readiness of school and the newness of school, if I'm going to be honest. Like, sometimes I hated it. I'm going to be real. Sometimes I did not like going to school, mostly because the commute was bad. But I did love the school itself. And if I wasn't in such a bad headspace, I feel like I would love it a lot more than what I felt my last semesters. Because the first semester, that when we were in person prior to COVID, I was exhausted, but I felt like a student. I felt like I was really trying. During my last semesters, I just wasn't trying like the way I was supposed to. So with that being said, with everyone going through such massive changes, I think the best thing I can talk about in a podcast episode is getting into the mindset to reset and just activities to do, and a combination of both. Let's get into it. The first thing I would do to reset is honestly rearrange my space, because I have the tendency to, when I'm stressed or overwhelmed, you can physically see it in my room. Especially since I work from home, this is something very important to me, that my space is very organized so I can fulfill all the systems I have to and the things I need to do. Like, for example, if my floor if there's like too much stuff around the floor, I can't literally do my morning workouts. And if I'm not doing my morning workouts, I end up sleeping in more. I end up not eating breakfast, and I end up being heavily reliant on coffee. And honestly, the vibes are just so off. And I also think I like looking at it better, and it's more motivating. Because if I'm looking at something and it overwhelms me, I feel like I can't even think. I can't even think about what I need to do. I can't think about the process. So if my room got bad, which honestly, it never gets as bad as it did in high school, it's still does get in a way that it bothers me, but not as bad as it was when I was struggling with depression in high school. So if you struggle with cleaning, one thing that did help me, well, a couple of things that helped me is, one, I would try to make time to clean once a day. I prefer morning cleaning, like for management, but I know myself that when I'm in a need to reset mind space, that I always end up doing like the most cleaning at night. But that's already if my sleep schedule is messed up and I'm just like trying to like sort it through. So choose a time of day that really works for you and make sure it's a certain amount of time, because for maintenance, for me, 30 minutes in the morning is good. But if it's like you really need to clean deeply, I would have like an hour or two dedicated to it, or dedicate a huge chunk of time on a weekend if that's like the only free time you have. Another thing that helped me with cleaning is thinking of my room and my space as zones, and then sticking to a zone for specific amount of time and not going from everything to everything. And I also know what distracts me the most when it comes to cleaning. I avoid doing those like areas first. The last thing I do to help me with this is I like to put on music, specifically not like the playlist I make, but for some reason the YouTube playlist does help me a lot. And it kind of makes you feel like you're like one of those people in a movie and they're just doing like a montage or something. Next, on to the second point. Once my space is clean, I also like to do a journaling session about what's wrong in the first place and doing some introspective work, because sometimes you get very overwhelmed but not necessarily know the reason why, because your thoughts are very jumbled. And sometimes with so much changes, you don't know what's really wrong, or you don't know what you're feeling. So making time to really dig in deep and really like step back from yourself really helps the process. So like, for example, this past week, I was very much like not in a good vibe set. Like I said, with the constant changes to the timing and how the timing was affecting me, and how it just felt like all I did was work, and I wasn't even doing like work that was like my personal work, because I am a person, like, besides having a job, my only outlet of creativity in August was working with my co-host on the other group podcast. And the only reason that was like my main source was because I didn't have to do like the other stuff that comes with being a creative at that point. Because creating is one thing, right? Having to do the edits is another thing. Having to do the promotions, having to make sure and create like a strategy for it. And I'm a creative person. I consider myself a creator. No, actually, speaking it into existence, I am a creator. And the platforms I like to create on is TikTok, Pinterest, because it's easier to have links. So I need content for Pinterest, which is usually from my blog or my podcast, and doing like clips of that. Then besides that, I want to get back on YouTube, because at one point that was something I really enjoyed. My blog, which is always going to be my main source of creating, because through and through I am a writer, but I do like other forms of content, clearly. And I like understanding how to use the equipment and edit and everything like that. But then besides like the creating aspect of my life, there's also like the health aspect. And I need to make sure I'm being physically healthy, because if I don't feel good about myself, right, I'm not going to be able to show up, and then my mental health takes a hit, because then I'm feeling insecure and I'm feeling self-conscious, you know? And vice versa. If my emotional state is not good, then I'm not going to take care of my physical health. So my health in general just needs to be in check. And I need to make sure that I'm really prioritizing my health goals equally and not one place over the other place. Trying to maintain relationships is another hard part of adulthood. Sometimes it's just like there's so much going on, especially in your 20s. There's finding a place, there's finding your community, there's finding a career or building up to a career you like. And honestly, the 20s is like one of the worst times because there's just so much going on. It's not like when you're a teen, right? Because with a teen, you don't have as much as responsibilities. But unfortunately, that's not the case for everyone. But then, like, in your 20s specifically, it's like you're finding what life is like outside of school once you graduate college, if you went to college. Some people, they don't take the college route. Some people they want to work right away route because they just want or need to earn money as fast as possible. And it's just, everyone's 20s is so different, but one thing that is 100% for everyone is the fact you go through so many changes. Being introspective has to be a part of the journey. And while you're being introspective, I would probably divide areas of life. I talked about this in one of my blog posts, how life has so many different tiers, I guess. For example, career and finances for some people are two separate things, but for me, career is a part of finances because a career for me is just a source of income. So with that being said, ask yourself those questions. Maybe you're visual, maybe you need to do a mind map, maybe more words help you, but really take that time to figure out, one, what's causing the disrupt in your schedule, and two, kind of refocus on what you want your life to be like, what makes you feel fulfilled. Because here's my thing, because I was so geared into work, I wasn't hitting my goals, and I had to put aside my content creating again, which was really making me more frustrated and kind of annoyed and resenting the job. I felt sad because I wasn't creating, which made me not want to work out, and me not working out then messes with my mental health, because then I'm like, oh, I have this flexibility. And the reason why I took a work at home job is because I needed the flexibility to do everything, and now I'm not doing anything. If possible, find a support system to help you through it, the things that you're struggling with. For instance, when I'm in a hard place, my mom, whenever I'm in a stressed place, she does help me out with some of the tasks that I need to navigate. And I feel like if you have a family member that could do that and help you, if they have the space to, don't let your pride get in the way and let people help you. Because I know I personally struggled with this, that it's hard for me to ask for help and to receive help. But sometimes if you want to reset, I'm not going to say become reliant on them, but take the help in areas where you can get the help. Don't be stubborn. Don't be prideful. Don't think you can do it all on your own, because even from when we're younger, we talk about how it takes a community to raise a kid or wherever the phrase is. Why does that change so deeply into adulthood that we think we don't need a community? And I feel like that's the issue, where we still need a community, but we try to force this independence because if we can't do it on our own, it makes us weak. But no, I think it makes you smart to not have to do everything on your own. It makes you smart to have your people, and it's not like you're never going to return the favor when you're settled, and if they need help in some way in return and you can provide it, it's a mutual thing. And it's not selfish or rude or entitled to need help sometimes. Next thing is, I think I'm on number 4. I would say the next step is really making a plan for your systems. Because at one point I did start to develop an energy level plan, because I do have a theory of, instead of just having one routine, because I don't think having one routine is possible for every single person. Like, for some people that works with, but especially if you want to live a creative life, if you're like me and consider yourself a creative, you need to go on energy levels, and you're not going to have the same energy levels every single day. Some days you're going to have to focus on your needs more than your wants, the things you need to do, the things that are required of you. And some days when you're empty, you probably need to focus more on your wants. So develop routines, not a routine, but routines for different energy levels, and make sure to apply it. Like, on work days, I know I have to do most of my needs. Or some days I completely need to focus on the things that I need to do in order to still have a job, But if the workday isn't as heavy and there are less needs for the work, that means I can also focus on my wants and things that fulfill me too, that bring out my creativity and that brings me joy, so I don't start resenting the work I'm doing. And besides having the routine systems, try to make your life easier where you can. You can plan out your meals. If you're someone who cooks, you can, but if you don't like meal prepping, try ingredient prepping, where you have things that you can just throw in the pan and it cooks, or throw in the air fryer and it's done. Do that. Whichever one is your preference. But make a plan. Don't raw dog it. Don't just go in. Plans are very, very good, because sometimes you need a little structure. Like, some people need more flow, but you can still have a plan and plan the flow. I'm not meant to have like a specific, like, I do this at that time, this at that time. And I'm not meant to have it like specific. But for example, for me to wake up in the morning, I need to move in the morning. But that doesn't mean the type of movement. That could mean like literally getting up and moving around to organize my room. That's a form of movement, right? But it's slower, but it's still movement. If I'm using my stepper, that's a slower movement. I'm not using my whole body, I'm just using my legs. Sometimes if I want to add weights to it, or if I want to try Pilates in the morning, or if I want something a little more fast-paced and want to do dance in the morning, I need to really wake up. I need to start my day with movement. So just knowing that general idea about yourself, you don't have to plan everything. It doesn't have to be this, and that, and the third, because maybe your energy levels don't match that day. But just know, if you have less energy in the morning, maybe a slower movement is better for you that day. But another day when you're more high energy, maybe you can do like rebound workouts or something. This is something I've been really liking, by the way, when I had the time to do it, was using my mini trampoline, which is called Rebound, and using that to work out. Yeah, so having that knowledge, which also stems from your introspection of yourself, that's another good way to reset. With all that being said, I hope this episode was somewhat helpful, because honestly, I was so nervous that I didn't really plan this, because right now I'm just trying to create and find my way with creating again without so much structure before I develop a structure, because I do think the fact that I am working on another podcast has helped my talking confidence, and I feel like I'm less slow speaking, and I'm also gonna try working more with a timer, because my biggest issue with recording the podcast is sometimes I think it would take me 1 hour, 2 hours to really talk about everything, and it really shouldn't take that long. But I think I was talking at a slower pace because I wasn't as comfortable, and I was trying so hard to create a system when I know I just need more time and more I need structure in the sense of time management, but I need to also just allow myself to create and see where the pain points are and just create without judgment and see what I can do. I can't remember if I said what I was grateful for today, but even so, if I did or didn't, I'm gonna end with saying another thing I'm grateful for right now, and that is really having the time to create again and really making that a priority, because when I do things that make me feel like I'm not acting in myself, or if I have to put basically myself on the back burner, I'm just not as happy as a person. And I think the point of life, especially with the last episode of the group podcast we talked about, was romanticizing life. And I felt so empowered after that episode. And then I just had like a little self-care day, and it was exactly what I needed. So I guess the last thing I'm saying is your challenge for the week and your journal prompt of the week. So since it's all about change, maybe write a list of all the changes in your life. And then kind of like play a game with it. With each thing you consider a huge change in your life, then maybe color code it and say, make it like a key. And red or whatever colors you choose, 3 colors, make one a change that's not affecting you deeply, a change that's kind of affecting you, and then a change that's highly affecting you. So do this exercise so you can really see what really affects you, and then do especially the introspection part of this episode. Like, this is the part I'm holding y'all accountable. You have to do that. And think about why the high priority ones are affecting you so deeply, and what it is about that you're very much struggling with. Because for me, like, the podcast and the group podcast has not been like a major change in my life, besides holding me accountable and allowing me an outlet. But with the job, that's been a high level change for me. With my computer breaking, like, it's been a change. It's been a little more inconvenient, but it's not like a major change. It does affect my content creating though, but I still would put that between like middle and lower. I don't know where exactly I would put it, but it's not like a super draining change. Because not all changes are going to be bad, and not all changes are for the better. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. But that's for you to determine. So I really hope you like this episode. In the show notes, I'll be including some blog posts I've been working on, because I'm already in planning New Year's mode. And honestly, it sounds a little crazy, but I think knowing what activities I want to do leading up to the winter season, because that's really when my fall is. Like, fall is like my time of celebration, because I know so many Libras and everything like that, so it's always been a huge celebration. Then there's always like Thanksgiving. So knowing what I want to do in my personal time to prepare for 2024 has been top of my priority, and also a way to help me manage my stress. So I'm going to include that in the show notes. So if you like this podcast, don't forget to rate and review, and also follow, because I am trying. But yeah, I hope you enjoy. Have a good day, evening, or night, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.